This morning we had the opportunity to look at Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And we have the opportunity to hear from Pastor Kevin and to hear in his story maybe some things that spur and spark some things in our own lives, in our own selves, and knowing that this is a way that God sharpens us, is to hear someone else's faith and to be able to see how he continues to work in our lives as well. So glad that you decided that or agreed to do this.
I agreed to do this,
There
yes.
you go.
Glad to do it, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to start off with the end.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to start with the end in mind. So the end, where you are right now, you're sitting with me right now.
Okay.
All of the experiences that you've had through your life, right, have brought you to this moment in some ways. So what's the tangible benefit of your faith today? Again, I'm going to take off the table salvation for eternity in Jesus Christ. We all know that. But I mean, what's the day-to-day benefit of being a believer?
Yeah. The day-to-day benefit, I'd say the tangible is knowing, is that confidence that certainly doesn't make everything better or good, but it is me knowing that even when the days are really hard or incredibly difficult or emotions are high, like God is still there. But then also like so many good days, and it's like, this is God working in this. So I think it, like all of like whatever the side of the spectrum is, that the tangible is God is in this. And God has shown me that, and so reminding me that every day, whether it be the high and this incredible and fun, or a difficult or emotional day, God's there. It's tangible to know that I have confidence. My God is with me and is working, even when it doesn't feel like it, or I can absolutely see it, but God is working.
Yeah, so kind of the baptismal promise fulfilled, right? I'm with you always.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so speaking of baptism, I'm taking you all the way back. Now let's go back to the beginning. So, so you were born.
I was, yes.
Then what? No. So, so where were you born?
I was actually born in Peoria, Illinois.
Peoria, Illinois.
This may be the end of your questions because I don't recall anything about Peoria, but I was born there.
All right, nice. Then moved to?
Somewhere else in Illinois, a little bit further away. I don't recall.
All right.
I have a bad memory. I'm not doing so well. But then I moved to Wisconsin. Went up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and then down to the Milwaukee suburbs, Menominee Falls to be specific.
All right, and that's where you graduated high school.
Yep, and that took me to high school.
All right, so grew up in a family of faith.
Yeah, I did.
So how was faith expressed in your house growing up?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I say this very respectfully because I have high respect for the way my parents did live out their faith, but it wasn't very overt. We prayed at dinner, come Lord Jesus, right? It's these, not thy.
I was just going to say, these are thy gifts, right?
I know I just offended half the people, but including my own wife. We're working on that. But no, it's that it wasn't super overt. We prayed at the dinner table. We went to church every weekend, and we participated in Bible study. And when there was a youth group, although I was one of 3 that got confirmed together, so youth group was pretty minimal. Yeah, but like we did those things. But other than that, I really didn't hear my parents talk about their faith much that I can really recall. And I knew that they had it, and I could tell clearly it was important because they put me through those exercises, and it wasn't a forceful put me through. But I find it interesting, we didn't talk about it a lot. Sometimes we did what the classic, how'd the pastor's sermon go that day? Which now I'm on the other side of that table, right? But it wasn't very overt. But I realized that it was deliberate and certainly had to have taken effort for them to do.
All right, so you're a guy known for your energy. So
a little bit.
As a kid, I'm guessing you had a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Right. So surely there has to be a story of maybe embarrassment, maybe slightly mischievous, but you put a frog in a neighbor's pool. Tell us that story.
So one that I'm going to regret saying, but I'm going to give you 2. And you told me 1, I'm giving you 2. So energy, my mother still to this day calls me a bull in a china closet because I am. Like, I just moved too fast, big surprise, and broke lots of things. One of the embarrassing stories is I remember I learned the lesson very young about what graffiti is because I just drew and marked over our entire play set that we had. Like, I mean, I just went to town, and that thing was covered. And it was not pleasant. Like, nothing like obscene or anything, but it's just all this writing and marks, and Mom was not pleased. Oh. So, learn what is graffiti, how are we going to clean this, even though it didn't come out.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was one of those.
That's funny.
I think that's the first one that comes to my mind, amongst many others.
But again, glad that God got you through those, right?
Yeah.
The prayer, the Bible remember not the sins of my youth. Those.
Right. We are forgiven, thankfully.
That's right.
Grace-filled parents. Yeah.
So everything wasn't always easy, though, growing up.
Right.
There were some challenges in your home.
Yeah, you know that.
Your parents ended up getting divorced.
Yep.
And so living with that kind of challenge and the things that brought, how did that impact your faith?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so certainly we've shared our story. We're sharing it with some others. My parents divorced when I was 14, 15. And that certainly challenged it because it raised a lot of questions for me. It threw everything into question for me. Because for me, as that child in that home, I didn't expect it or see it. And so it raised a lot of this uncertainty of what is or what could be, what's kind of hiding behind that corner with other people that you don't know. So I really struggled with trust for a long time. Not necessarily just at them, but just, what will people do? They say, we're going to be friends. Well, at what point could that call in question? So it really caused a lot of questions. And then, I had a long history with a lot of struggles with my father, and when he left the home, and illness, and struggle with alcohol. And so that really caused a long, dark period, years of wrestling with, God, are you in this? Truthfully wondering many times, like, God, where? How? And probably many times where I cried out and it's like, just anger. Anger and sadness, and all right, God, I can't see it. Probably at times I wish I would have said, all right, show me, God, but I just let the cry out, which thankfully we know the psalmist can do, right? We hear that, just let the cry out, let the lament, the anger, the what have you. But really caused, a lot of questions, and a lot of just recognizing the heartache and depth of what can exist, and just, God, hear it because it's here.
Who'd you lean on during that time?
Well, you said you were gonna poke me and make me be honest and vulnerable. Probably not many people, if anyone, actually. I probably wasn't healthy. Okay, let me say it differently. I wasn't healthy in the way that I dealt with that. I didn't really lean on people. I leaned on myself. It was a lot of just turning inward, and just working hard on the things I could control, when especially everything else is out of control. So I know now not the right boundaries, right? Need to have people in your corner that you can lean on, but I didn't really have people that I necessarily leaned on. Yeah, it wasn't until later on in life, later like mid college or so, when I definitely had that stronger friend group to actually talk to and be open with and actually lean on them. So, yeah.
So high school, in the midst of all that, you're playing soccer, right?
Yeah, I like soccer. Yeah. Helped with the bull in the china closet thing, let your anger out in the appropriate ways, or not your anger, but your energy. Outside midfield, left because no one else wanted to play left, and I wanted to play, and I can run.
There you go.
Yeah, that was my main thing. I loved that.
So then you decided to go to Concordia, Chicago, for college. How'd you make that decision?
Yeah, so I was the classic example of a pastor today of, someone told me, spoke in my life, be a pastor, and I said no. Fought that for a while, right? Good fun story we hear so often.
So who was that?
That was my pastor,
Okay.
Pastor Norm Timmerman, and he spoke that into me. And like I said, just high respect for him. He was that pastor at that church there in Milwaukee area, and just good guy, encouraged me. And I don't know what it was. It was someday, I do remember Easter one year when it just it clicked. It wasn't necessarily a feeling. I didn't hear a voice, but it was like something clicked. We're going to talk. So explored that with him. All right, hey, maybe you're right. What's this look like? And the more I explored, I was like, okay, go to a Concordia because you can get the languages done more easily. Let's talk ease, not just
so languages.
Let's do this.
You have to learn Hebrew and Greek for
Right.
seminary, and so if you can learn them ahead of time, it makes seminary a lot easier.
Yeah. So, and I went in knowing okay, let's work on the Greek and Hebrew. Seminary, pastor is in the future. But also it's a long road. I mean, it'd be 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of seminary. So I went sociology major. I loved learning about those things and systems and how do people work, and certainly fits with what we're doing, caring for people and paying attention. So.
All right. So what's a good sociology lesson?
Lesson? Oh man.
Or what's a good sociology tenet?
So one of my
guides
favorite
you?
experiences was interesting because sounds a little bit odd, but I took sociology of death. And so it was a whole class talking about death and how do different cultures talk about it. And so we actually had to write, so it was, I don't know, in college, 18, 19, 20 years old or whatever, and we had to write our own obituary and go through the whole thing, which was weird at that age.
Very.
But yeah, that was an interesting experience.
Wow.
Yeah. I would also do it differently now.
Talk about beginning with the end in mind.
Right.
Good grief. All
Yeah.
right.
And it was
cool.
interesting because in that class, a lot of non-believers, people who were very open. They didn't go to church. They didn't have faith. So really cool to have that experience when I certainly did, and then they did it. So.
And so through this, how's your spiritual life? Is your, college, considering seminary, looking at all of that?
Yeah.
How's your spiritual life?
Yeah, getting better. College was the first time I ever actually read through the Bible. Again, reading church and some devotional life, admittedly pretty sparse when I was younger. But college, when I finally said, all right, I'm going to do this. And that was a pretty cool experience for me. I never read through it. I did do cover to cover. So that wasn't challenging with the genealogies. But that really helped getting into that. But spiritual life just bloomed and just exploded. Got into Concordia youth ministry teams, so leading lock-ins and other experiences with youth. And so I was being strengthened by other peers, but also these teenagers that we were going to visit at these churches, and they could show and express their faith, which is kind of part of what we're talking about. So I got to learn a lot. My faith really grew as I heard from so many of them. And then certainly I should say also Pastor Jeff, campus pastor there, was really pivotal. Spoke a lot into my life. Again, another pastor who spoke into my life, my faith experiences, the challenges that I was still going through with my father, and the things that I was wrestling with and the pain. So a lot more people speaking into it at that time.
And taking time.
Mm-hmm. A lot of time to listen, be there. I started learning a little bit of vulnerability. Not a lot, but started learning that with people I knew I could trust and who were there to support me and speak into that. Yeah.
So fast forward a little bit, again, going through seminary, gone vicarage in Georgia, again, finishing up with seminary, then at what point does Jordan enter the picture?
She was college.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's see, it was my freshman year. Freshman year, we met mutual friend groups, met at actually a St. Patrick's Day parade, so of all things, but 2 friend groups, and we meet there, and I won't deny it, I was interested. So certainly made sure to find times where she would be around on campus, and we didn't actually start dating till the next year, till sophomore year, but then we dated through, and here we are.
Got married at what point?
Yeah, after I graduated, so.
Before seminary.
Right before seminary. So it was a whirlwind. I graduated, we got married, moved to St. Louis together. Yeah, it was fun.
Lots of big changes.
It was a lot at once, yeah. And meanwhile, she's being awesome. She's supporting myself and her. She's looking for a teaching job because she's a Lutheran school teacher. So she was finding that and moving states and a lot at once.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So first call obviously is in St. Louis, in De Pere. And again, you're learning and growing in your own ministry and your own faith. What was the biggest challenge to your faith as a young pastor, just starting out?
Yeah. So answering honestly, the biggest challenge to my faith was the personal stuff I was still wrestling with, that I still had a lot of pain and heartache, and quite frankly, I was holding on to forgiveness against my father that I should have given sooner. So for me, the biggest personal moment in faith growth was early on in those years as a pastor, was that being convicted in it. I'll never forget the day it was COVID, which my least favorite time to preach because you go to the cameras, right, and do those where, normally I wanted to see all the people, but I think partially in that aloneness of it, I was convicted in the message I was about to proclaim of forgiveness. And that convicted my own heart of this is what I need to also speak. And so for me, that was a really pivotal moment of not only do I preach and teach this stuff, but live it, and it is constantly working on my faith. I was trying to before, right? I was never trying to be fake, but or not live it, but it never hit home until a few years in. And so that was probably the most pivotal moment for me in faith.
And you did end up reaching out to your dad with that.
Yeah. Yep, I reached out to him on Father's Day. That was just a couple days later on Father's Day. Shared to him. It was actually a card. I wrote to him, I forgive you, but then I was able to speak it to him in person a couple weeks later, which ended up being only months before he died. So really thankful that I was able to have that opportunity, right, to be able to speak that and have that moment together.
Yeah, and to share with him something that had to have been monumental for him too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To receive that.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about not sharing faith a lot. He didn't. But to be able to have that conversation together And then in his final moments, to be able to know the faith conversation that he shared with me, how he had a powerful moment of that with his pastor in those final moments. So yeah, all of that coming together is pretty impactful for my faith journey as well.
So now you and Jordan, obviously, you've got 4 kids, 4 great kids, and that I know from you love dearly. So when you think about your home, you and Jordan and your kids, what's something that you said, I want to make sure I bring that into my home. I want to make sure that that's a part of our home spiritually.
Yeah, so what do I want part of my home is the level of honesty and Christian vulnerability. I have had many moments where I've been convicted still. I have to get down to my kid's eye level and look at her and say, I'm sorry. I yelled a little bit more than I should have with that one, even though really shouldn't have done that. They know that, right? But that honest Christian vulnerability of we all mess up, no matter our age, no matter where we're at, what's going on, we all mess up. We put the term sin on it, those things. But to be able to speak that forgiveness and to demonstrate the Christian life for them and with them, I think is the most powerful for me.
Cool.
So I want to try.
Yeah. So when you think about all of the people who have inspired you and people who've blessed you in your life, you brought up a couple of pastors. I'm sure there's others as well. What's the best piece of spiritual advice you've ever been given?
Spiritual?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I sort of want to know what the other piece of advice is.
So my best advice that I was given for parenting is only listen to the advice you want to listen to.
Okay.
But, I mean, you're shooting your own advice, right?
Yes.
But it's true. You get a lot of parenting advice. Best spiritual advice?
I have to say, now with that's kind of funny because one of the best things we ever heard was before we took our trip or the pilgrimage, I think almost every family makes to Disney World, somebody told us, do Disney World your own way. And that was really important. So it's like the same with parenting.
Right, do it your own way.
Yeah.
And I can't recall a moment someone's spoken, here's my advice to you. I think the best spiritual advice have been the people that I can see living it, that actually didn't speak it. That true phrase of, right, actions speak louder than words. The people that demonstrate it, to be able to see it in, quite frankly, in the disciples that can see around here at Cornerstone, to the people, like I said, throughout college and at St. Paul's de Pere and in those lives and other times that they just lived it. Their spiritual advice was, I'm not here to tell you a bunch of stuff. I'm here to live out the Christian life, which is what we should do then, right? So their advice is go do this, live likewise. Which sometimes it'd be nice if they just said, right? Tell me the thing, right? Give me the advice so I can just do that. But I think that's the most powerful that I can think of.
Cool.
But it matters, right? It's stuck with me.
Yeah. All right. So some quick hit questions.
Okay.
All right. So
speed round.
I know you're not a big sports fan.
I understand sports. I just don't have a team.
So
I'm big on if you're a fan, you better follow them closely. So I don't want to be.
Sure.
I'm not fake.
So favorite, like it can be celebrity, it can be sports star, it can be politician, but just favorite person you look at and like you go, oh, that's a cool person.
Oh man. We were watching all the Olympics lately. I was pretty impressed. There's that 16-year-old kid. I mean, that's not my favorite sports person. I don't know. I'm going with Olympians. Olympians track and field.
Just generic.
Yeah,
all the
just
Olympians.
Generic. All the Olympians. That's great. That's really helping my reputation of being the sports guy.
I said it didn't have to be sports. It could have been anything. All right. What would you say? You've lived in several different places. Again, Georgia, Wisconsin, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, obviously Indiana. In all of those places, if somebody were to say, hey, I'm going to one of them, what's the one place I have to visit? What's your one place somebody has to visit somewhere that you've lived? Okay,
I say it all the time, but Gus's Pretzels in St. Louis. Love that place. You got a fully cooked brat encased in a soft pretzel. I mean, if they're watching this at Fisher's, they've heard me say that in at least one sermon before. Gus's Pretzels.
Gus's Pretzels.
St. Louis.
All right, cool. Favorite book, TV show, movie, for you, podcast?
The Office.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Quoted too many times.
Why did you choose to run 37 miles? Okay, I'll ask that a little bit differently.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind with these endurance races, marathons, ultra marathons?
Yeah, so it is, I love to run. It's actually, I do enjoy it, especially for the ultras, the 37 miles and the goals I have for the future it's the pushing yourself to that, how can you go further? How can you see how far you can go? Which I don't run always thinking, every second this is a spiritual test, but there's something connected, right? Like God is there, He's with you, and see what you can do. You've been given this body, let's push it.
All right, favorite Bible verse?
1 Peter 5, right? Be aware that the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking to kill and devour, and yet, and this is paraphrasing because I lose all the exact, and yet take heart because your brothers endure the same thing. And so it's that, there's a reality this is around, but you're not alone. You have your brothers in faith. You have your God who is faithful.
Cool. So what's your favorite part about being pastor at Cornerstone?
Aside from working with you. Got it in. No, honest answer, favorite part of Cornerstone is the team, and that certainly extends with the disciples. Like this is a place that my whole family, we feel comfortable. It is fun. We're doing ministry, we are sharing the gospel, but we get to have a lot of fun doing it. And I think hopefully that shows, right, when we serve, but the fun. This is a family that is all about the gospel, but we're having fun.
Joy of salvation.
Amen.
All right. So what's one question? I asked you a bunch of questions. What's one question that you wish I had asked you?
Wish I had asked. Oh man, I wish I could have prepped for that one.
You didn't prep for any of these.
I know that, right? Favorite food.
All right. What's your favorite food? Is it Russ's pretzel? The pretzel, the
not Gus's
taste,
pretzels.
or?
No, chocolate chip cookies. I know it's not like that's not dinner, but it is food.
It can be.
You eat a lot of cookies.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, good. I appreciate you sharing some of those. And again, as you heard Pastor Kevin share some of these things, hopefully you were thinking of different stages and seasons in your life and the way that God's been faithful and the way He's shown Himself throughout those, and recognizing, again, iron sharpens iron. We hear someone else's story, and it spurs some things in our own as well. And some of the things that you said today, knowing that in difficult moments God is with you, knowing that He fulfills the promise that He makes to us, that He's always with us, He will never leave us nor forsake us. The confidence that we can have day to day in living that out, and knowing that as He is with us, we have assurance no matter what comes. It's literally not the end of the world.
Right.
So living in that love. So I pray that God will bless you through that knowledge. Bless you also as you think about ways that you could sharpen others and the ways that God is continually working in your life. So thanks for sitting and answering some questions today.
Yeah, thank you.
And I pray that God blesses you in all that you have to do this week.